And then I said, I don't care if you're Jacob Rees-Mogg. Take the socks off. Shit, we're live. Space. The final frontier. These are the voyages of the Starship Adequate. Our ongoing mission until we are cancelled and replaced by something far superior. To review every episode of Star Trek and movie in existence. To seek out new guests and make them extremely uncomfortable. To boldly go where many other Star Trek-based YouTube channels have gone before. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning. It is Friday. It is the Nerdy Up North YouTube channel. We are live for another episode of Trekking Up North. I am your host, as ever, Captain Goodwill. And joining me is the delectable Geesian from the planet Science Officer Synoiz. Hello, Synoiz. How are you?
I'm good. I was wondering how long you were going to hold new there, which is to seek out new guests. Is that going to gradually get longer?
Line. Oh, guests. Right. Okay. That's what it was. So, to seek out new profits. No. I'm a union.
No.
But
None
yeah,
of these profits.
You have been a rather busy boy this week, wouldn't you?
I wouldn't say boy was the right word. I've been a very busy queen this week. Oh, we've been pissing off the homophobes on Facebook apparently, which I'm quite pleased at.
Okay, so I'm gonna buck the trend here. Obviously, we all love Synoiz. We all love what Synoiz does and what Synoiz represents. What we don't love are the people that don't like what Synoiz does and what Synoiz represents. More to the point, our illustrious leader does not like this. And we got a rather disturbing message from someone who took umbrage with everything that Synoiz has been doing this week, which was absolutely beautiful and hardworking at DragCon. And Paul, being Paul,
replied entirely professionally to
this is the most professional message I have ever seen in my life, and I'm going to say quote, and I'm going to bleep some of them. You know it's 2024. This small-minded, pathetic, homophobic attitude should not be tolerated. Please bleep off. I'm embarrassed that you follow this page, you small-minded, limped beep. Well done.
I love that. I mean, the thing is, basically, the story was me in drag walking down the runway, the pink carpet, I think, at DragCon, or it was the one where I'm interviewing Nikki Doll from Drag Race France. But it's this idea of just like, I don't think there's anything wrong with disliking drag and disliking sort of queer culture, but it's the idea of feeling that you need to point it out. You know, it's like that idea. It's like the dickhead who kind of goes like, oh, Star Wars. Well, I hate Star Wars. And it's like, that's lovely. Just keep it inside. You know, it's just like, don't voice it to the room. Like,
it's
you know, and the idea that someone can be like sort of, oh my God, this is disgusting kind of thing about like, you know, a man in a dress. He's just like going, is it really? Okay, well, thanks for sharing. Now fuck off.
It's not like my deep-seated passionate hatred for ITV2 and all it represents in British culture. Nothing like that at all, because I will continue to pour gasoline onto that fire until it's not about the money, it's about sending the message that ITV2
hang on, are you quoting the very episode we're going to be reviewing later?
No,
I'm pretty sure that
I was quoting the Joker, but yeah, okay. It's not about the money; it's about sending the message. I went to Waterstones this week. In search
Hold on, that was the most awkward segue I've ever heard
from homophobia to
homophobia.
From homophobia,
ITV
from hating ITV2 to literacy, because people from ITV2 can't read. Yes, I was looking for a book which proved rather difficult. However, I did stumble across something on the little novelty gifts section. Ooh. It was a little box, and on the little box it went USS Enterprise model, and I was like, ooh, I like a model. So I bought it for £10 English. Here it is.
Oh, what's so
cute. Look at how cute this is. It was a build your own model, but it has a trick. And I'm just going to turn off the lights. It lights up.
Amazing.
How
10
tiny!
English pounds?
10 English pounds, and
Is
it
it just like
lights
one
up.
LED inside it?
It's I think it's two LEDs
Hmm.
on a. Oh God, what is it?
That's so cute. I love it.
It's like it's an LR41 battery, so it's not even a coin battery. They're like the tiniest batteries that you can get, and it's like £10 in Waterstones. And I was like, this is the cutest goddamn thing I've ever seen, and I'm purchasing it for my desk. Not like I've already got 17 million variations of this ship already, but you can never have enough. Speaking of, the shelf of mild destitution behind me has Deep Space Nine and the Defiant.
How long have you been waiting to get the DS9 model out?
I've had that model since 2013, so that says a lot. It's been a long time.
That's the first time it gets to appear in Trekking Up North.
That's 11 years old. Holy shit. Yeah.
That's older than most people on Epstein Island. Christ.
Okay, so we limited.
Hello, DS9 model.
Limited
Goodbye, monetization.
Income. Yes.
Hi, Paul in the chat.
Hi, Crimson, another northern nerd who's probably got the same uniform that I've got. Christopher Reed, lick it. I am not licking anything. I know where it's been. The glorious 188.36 foot Viking god that is Adam. Hey, hey, hey. Oof. Hey, Adam. And we've got David in the chat, David Jones, who's actually been in Star Trek, and we will say that. What? New Goodwill was a feat, man. What the fuck's he on about here? Christopher, what are you on about? Joe Borders in the chat. What the fuck?
I'm really confused by the chat. I love it. We got
Kirky.
General Kirky's in the chat.
Kirky, which model do you want? Because like I said, this is in Waterstones. Waterstones for 10 English pounds. And then that model is no longer available.
Can you bargain for it?
Yes, you could probably stack some shelves.
Ferengi style.
Yeah, you could probably teach some people in Middlesbrough to read. That one, I don't think it's for sale anymore. They really need to do a bigger one. There should have been a bigger one where you can put all the...
I love the idea of how tiny it is. And you're like, so DS9 always has to be in the distance. It has to be, it's the beginning of the actual credit sequence.
There you go.
Look at that. I do quite like, though, that in the episode, like not the one we're doing today, but in the episode where one of the pylons gets blown up, you kind of go, that's a massive deal, because there's only technically 3 of them. There's only like sort of, you know, like it's the one where the Jem'Hadar attack and they beam on and they detonate a bomb and blow up like one of the pylons. And it's just going like, whoa, it's a big deal. Like when you see the scale of it in relation to the rest of DS9.
It's DS9 is like so friggin' big. Like it's like 2 miles big, I think. From the thing. General Kirky says the DS9 one, haha, I didn't buy it at the convention and instant regret. Instant regret. There is a larger model that I do regret buying, but it was like £70 and I just don't have 70 English pounds because of Cosy Lives from the Tories.
I have to say though, like at conventions, you forget how easy it is to spend money. You forget how you lose track. It's like when you're on holiday and you're like, this isn't real money. No, this is fake play money. And then afterwards you're like, I need to eat beans forever now.
that was me when I came back from America last year. And I was like, I don't need this money. And then I am horrendously in debt.
I mean, that was the thing. To be fair, I was kind of protected at DragCon at the weekend because if we didn't mention earlier, I was doing press at RuPaul's DragCon UK 2024 last weekend in the Excel Centre in London. And it was amazing because I got to meet all of the wonderful queens. I got to interview so many people. I'm knackered because we interviewed on Sunday. We interviewed 27 people in one day.
Oh my God.
Which is just ludicrous. Like, and some of the interviews are like 11 minutes long. And you just like, we kind of calculated that I must have been speaking for about 3 hours straight over the course of that day, not including general talking to people. But it was quite good because the way that the press room was done is that they made it so you could only interview people in the press room. You couldn't do it bumping into them downstairs or backstage or anything like that. And so it basically meant that I just never left the press room, because as soon as I was about to leave and go, oh, cool, I'll take half an hour and I'll go and like, check out some of the stalls and buy some merch and stuff. Someone would come in. So you'd just be about to leave. And then it'd be like, oh, it's a famous queen has just walked in. So now I need to interview them. Otherwise, you miss them. And so it kind of saved me a lot of money because I never got to the stalls to look at stuff to buy. So I only spent about like 70 quid, I think, on merch.
Well,
And considering that like poor people, like all these, like, because obviously I was very lucky to have press, but like a lot of the actual like the punters there had paid a lot for their tickets. And then all of the booths had it where like in order to get a photo or to meet the queen themselves, you had to spend like 30 quid or 50 quid or whatever. Like Michelle Visage, who's one of like the main judges on Drag Race, like I think it was like 50 quid just to meet her.
what?
Like, and you didn't get anything for it. You didn't, it was literally just 50 quid meet and greet. And you're like, because the queue was massive, we were like, we can't do that. What?
Do you get
yeah, to get a photo, yeah.
Oh, right, okay. I was like, just to meet.
Well, basically, the way it was is basically the only way to meet her, because they basically she was basically in a closed room, so you had to kind of queue to go into the room where she was, so you couldn't accidentally get a photo of her, or you couldn't sort of take a cheeky selfie with her in the background. But the only way to do it was to pay the 50 quid. And then when you were in there, it was like, oh, cool, you can take a special photo with her and stuff. So yeah, that was the only way to meet her, which was, and even for press, we tried to get press, and the people were like, no, no, it doesn't matter if you've got like access all areas, you can't meet her.
Why do I get a flashback from the Simpsons episode of the I Didn't Do It Kid? Meet the I Didn't Do It Kid, and then just Grandpa Simpsons is like, I have to pay $5 to see my old grandson because he's queued up. But I mean, merchandise is a good segue. Because we too have Trekkin Up North merchandise that Paul has been hinting at in the chat. Yes, this one is for Ensign Bailey, Adam Bailey, to be sent to him. So I need to get his address this week to post up. The lovely Sean Ferrick should have received his by now. We've had David, who received his in Canada, which is infuriating that he got his in Canada quicker than Sean got his in Dublin. That's insane. But
wait, the whole situation is insane. Like the point where it's quicker to get to like Spain than it is to get to London. Or like, like I can get to Spain quicker than I can get to Manchester. And I'm just like going, and for cheaper. And I'm like, well, why is this? Why is all of our transport and postage terrible?
But
it seems to me as soon as you give it away from Royal Mail, it's faster.
Well, I mean, don't mention numbers in the Royal Mail in the same sentence because they'll only inflate them. What won't inflate? What won't inflate is the 100% premium cotton that is in every Trekkin Up North T-shirt, designed passionately by our cult leader and made of the loom of the fruits.
Fruity Loom.
It's a fruity loom. It's a fruity loom. Look at that. I mean, look at this. Look. Elegant printing and cellophane wrapping. Direct.
We really need to work out something better because it's getting to the point now where we did these as like a sort of, as a sort of minor thing where we were like, hey, we'll just give them to guests or whatever, and we'll get like a couple made kind of thing. And now we've genuinely got people being like, how do I get one of these? And we're kind of in the position of going, we didn't really think about that. So send us a message and we'll work it out. So it's that, it's the unexpected demand.
Buy my stuff.
Yeah.
Because I am horrendously in debt and need not to be in debt. So buy.
I love it.
But no, if anyone out there does want a Trekking Up North t-shirt, feel free to come to the Nerdy Up North Facebook group and send a message to our lovely admins, or go onto the Nerdy Up North website and send us a message there, and we will arrange something for you. And any other merchandise ideas to do with Trekking Up North, please feel free, because I do have ideas, but I am clueless when it comes to the whole merchandise things. Oh, we have stickers.
To be fair, Adam's saying in the chat that he needs one of the trekking ones. Does it come in God size?
Sorry, I just blacked out when you said the word "cum" and Adam in the same sentence. But anyway, we are here to review a wonderful little episode of Deep Space Nine Season 4, Bar Association.
I am so incredibly happy. I'm not gonna lie, I've had full on January blues like since the beginning of the year, and DragCon was so much hard work. Like, it was literally, we're talking 5 a.m. start to get into drag. Then I had to be there at about 8:15 in the morning. And then I was literally on my heels with the only time I got to sit down the whole day is when the interviewee wanted to sit down. So when they were like, oh, I want to sit down to do this interview, that's when I got to sit down. And finished at about 7 p.m. and had to get out of drag, which was 2 days in a row is pretty difficult. But the fact of knowing that I got to finish, come back, and watch this episode, and I've watched it twice this week, and this is the chicken soup of Star Trek. This episode is it's the warm, it's the mother's hug of like Star Trek kind of episode. It's so wonderful.
Don't you feel that the midsection? I mean, all of DS9 is great, but the midsection of DS9, as in season 3 to 5, season 6, is sort of the comfort era of Star Trek, and you could put it on and instantly feel at home. I have always said this about Deep Space Nine. I love every form of Star Trek. All Trek is good Trek. We all know that. Deep Space Nine, though, it was more than just a family. It was a family in a home. And the station was everybody's home. The promenade was where you went to the shops. Quark's bar was the local. You had Morn, for God's sake.
Yeah.
We had it just felt homely. And when Deep Space Nine got into this sweet spot, it was wonderful. And these episodes, I mean, I did not want to stop after I'd watched Bar Association. I wanted to move on to the next one and the next one, because it was just like a warm hug.
I literally watched the next one, and then the next one I was just like, oh, hang on, I've got stuff to do. And and I was just like, but it just happens so easily. It's like, oh, it doesn't matter that I've got to go to bed, I've got work the next day. I'm like, let's watch the next episode, because you immediately see it and you're like, oh, the next one's the one with the guy who thinks he's the emissary and whatnot. They have an emissary off and stuff, and then oh, the next one's the one where this happens. You're like, and it's just like going, you just keep going, you get into the flow, and then it becomes like a tidal wave.
It was the 30th anniversary of Star Trek when this aired, so Star Trek was quite literally at its peak. Like, this was the golden era. I mean, they had like a full Hollywood gala celebration for the 30th anniversary, which was presented by Ted Danson, of all people.
Wow, he's never been in Trek, has he?
It was a red carpet event in Hollywood. They had the cast of Frasier recreating Frasier, but in space, where like Daphne was a helmsman when she's like, "Oh, sir, I'm a bit psychic. We've got a ship coming, and it's coming in at bloody hell. It's really moving." And it was stuff like that, where like,
did it tie in with the episode where Frasier's a captain? I've forgotten what his captain name is
from TNG.
Yeah,
Captain Freeman.
Because I just love that they randomly did it, where in Star Trek, Morgan like Bates. With Whoopi Goldberg, you had people just being like, "Can I please appear in Star Trek?"
But I mean, that spawned endless memes where it's just like, "Dear God, Niles, you piloting a 24th century starships is a bit pair, isn't it? Oh, really, brother? You with your rickety out antiqued Soyuz class." Oh, what was the other one? It was like, "Oh my God, Niles, are you mixing 23rd century Klingon blood wine with Raktajina?" Just stuff like that. It was but it was.
I love it though. It's that perfect like the 90s where you could just combine all of the stuff from the 90s and it kind of all fit together like a glove. It was wonderful.
It was a wonderful time to be alive and to be a Trekkie. It was and just this whole era was like a massive warm hug, because this was just Star Trek at its apex. This was prime. This is as good as it was going to get. And
I think it's as good as it has got. Like, I'm very obviously Strange New World. Well, actually, I love Strange New Worlds in a different kind of way. Strange New Worlds makes me feel the same way as this Sweet Spot DS9, where it's the idea of we have an episode now, okay, which is the epitome of good writing because the one we're doing today, basically, it has a main plot, it has a B plot. Does it have a C plot? No, it has
no,
it has an A plot, it has a
it's
B
a
plot,
strong
but
A,
it's
minor B, I would
yeah.
say.
And then it basically manages to involve every character. And Cisco is in it for about 4 minutes of a 45-minute episode. Like the captain, well, yeah, he is the captain at this point. The captain is in 2 scenes, and they are very short scenes, but he manages to make a point. He stands out a lot in the episode, and it lets every single character in this episode shine and sets up loads of future episodes. Like this stacks up loads of future plots. Like, and it's just wonderful. Like, how do you do that? How do you like tell a story and then manage to still,
it's a great way. It's a great way for a mid-season filler episode, like you said, to stack up a load of foreshadowing plots, but to also it's great writing when contractually every main star must have an appearance and a line in an episode in order to get a paycheck. Now that could be a sentence, 2 sentences, or a scene. Once they are done, that's $7,500 in the pocket. They are going home. So it's a case of look at Nana Visitor.
Yeah,
Okay?
she has a sentence. She has a sentence in this episode.
Absent for 99.9% of the episode. Comes into the bar, orders a load of drinks. Real life, she did 1 sentence, got $7,500, got back into the car and drove home. That for me is the best goddamn day's work. I would be over the moon.
But how cool is that, though, that the writers did that?
Yeah.
The writers could have been like, hey, we could save $7,500 by just not having her in this one. But they're like, no, well, she needs to appear. Like, so she needs to appear. That doesn't need to happen, her appearing in this. Like, Cisco is essential to the plot. Kira isn't. But then this kind of respect for the actors and allowing them to get paid. I mean, it would be cheeky if they had an episode all about unions and then didn't pay some of their, like.
But it's a very poignant. It is a very poignant episode, specifically for Americans, where the word union, much like the word union on Ferengana, is very taboo, very. Ooh, like you can't say that word. You can't mention the word unions in the workplace in some places in the United States, and this represents that because the main plot is the workers at Quark's bar decide to form a union after Quark makes a number of cutbacks, cutting their salaries by 1/3 or cutting the staff by half if they refuse to accept it because of So go on.
But it basically comes about because Rom, his brother, is actually really sick and he's really sick, but he's being forced to work because they don't have such things as sick days. So it's the fact of he's actually like sort of deathly ill with an infection, but he's not allowed to actually go and do anything about it because then he wouldn't get paid.
It's against
this is a real thing.
Yeah,
it's
against
a real
the
thing where
standard clause. They are entitled to no sick leave. They are entitled to no vacation days at all. It is a standard clause. So for Ferengis, this is common practice. But Rom is really, really. He's got like a really bad infection in his ear, and it gets to the point where, as you'll see, but as you'll see in the rolling banner below, he ends up using Moogie's cocktail at the bar, just pouring it directly into his lug hole, and he just passes out. And basically, like there we go, right there on the like, and he eventually collapses, and Quark, being Quark, instead of calling for Bashir or the infirmary, gets someone else to clear the mess, and then docks his pay for the smashed glasses because it's Quark. But
And it's this idea, and this is what's so wonderful about DS9, because it shines a light to the society we have, this kind of like late stage capitalism that we're living through at the minute, where you realize how suicidal it is, like how like dumb it is, where basically it's the fact of going, he's treating his workers like crap in order to make more money, and then ends up losing money because of it, like we're seeing in the UK at the minute, like we're seeing in Hollywood, where it's going, hey, okay, so you've made yourself look terrible to your customer base, you've made yourself lose loads of money because of obviously nothing's going on, and you've had to also sort of, having to pay more than you would have done originally because you put it off for so long. And it's that silly idea of the short-term greed, like, never ever outweighs the long-term benefits of paying people properly. And I just like that a DS9 episode goes into this so much, where it's the idea of Quark being like, oh, well, you can rest when you're dead kind of thing. And it's like, well, then you have one less worker, it's...
But the sub B plot to this episode is revolves around Worf, who is struggling to acclimatise to life on the station, and also
he only appears at the beginning of season 4, isn't it? Season 3, isn't it?
Yeah,
no, season 4.
This is after the events of Star Trek Generations, where obviously the Enterprise D is destroyed, but he moves to Deep Space Nine. But I could sort of see what you were referring to earlier, where, was there another subplot to the subplot? Because yes, there was, because obviously there was a burgeoning relationship between Worf and Jadzia, as we see in this episode. Straight from the beginning, where she infers that he's in love with the Defiant, because obviously he wants to do all these calibrations and stuff, and she goes, "Oh, you're in love," and he thinks she's referring to her. Yeah. When she's just like, the Defiant, you're in love with the Defiant. And we see that, go continue all the way through the episode. We
also see the burgeoning romance between Rom and Lita.
Yes, but at this point,
where it's the idea of, this is the first time that they kind of realize they've got feelings for each other, and it's not spoken, but it's the idea of just being like, oh wow, like Lita gets to see Rom in a whole new light. And this is totally changes her opinion about it.
This is at a point where Lita is with Bashir, the dirty little dog that he is. Because
and I think I think it's a wonderful statement, because basically what we're saying, because Rom is a joke. Like Rom's, there's 3 characters in DS9 that the writers didn't know what to do with, essentially, and and they are Rom, Bashir, and Jake. And the fact is that possibly Nog, but I don't know. I feel like they knew what to do with Nog, kind of thing. And then obviously with Bashir, they kind of go, okay, he's not really doing anything. We're going to put in the whole genetically modified thing. We're going to put in like romance and stuff for him. And it kind of works out. And then obviously with Rom, they kind of go, okay, he starts off a evil Ferengi, then they make him into just a bumbling idiot, and then they go, actually, he's not a bumbling idiot, he's just trying to survive in a society which doesn't suit him. Like, he's trying to be a Ferengi when he's not a Ferengi by nature.
He was born into a different... He was either born into a different culture, or he was born into a different time of that culture, where his ideals and his values do not correspond to the culture in question. So he is, as we see later on in DS9 and now in Lower Decks, where he transforms Ferengi culture to represent his ideologies and his, in his way of doing things.
It's brilliant. It's genuinely brilliant. Yeah. Sorry, I want to talk about that, but it's the fact that the other character is Jake. And my one criticism of DS9 is they never find out what to do with Jake. Jake just,
he just becomes a writer, and he
becomes a writer.
He's with the Federation News Network, and that's it. Yeah. And it's sort of, when you look at the 2 kids, Jake and Nog sort of had an arc where he just became, at first he was just this bratty little Ferengi kid who was just constantly getting into trouble, didn't know what to do. And, it was that standard American thing of, have you thought about the military? They were just like, off you go, 4 years. Drummed him into the service. But his arc was, we got some of the best episodes of any Star Trek, which revolved around Nog. We got the Siege of AR-558, and then I always forget the one with Vic.
I always forget it as well, but
where
I know
he's
the
dealing with
episode
his
you mean.
PTSD, and it is the best episode for me. The only good Jake episode is the one without, like, well, I won't say good, but in terms of the character, not Sir Lofton, is the one that always makes me cry, where Cisco appears every 10 years, due to a temporal anomaly.
Time thing.
That's it. Like his arc is never really resolved, and even the last.
I think the problem is it's because Jake is a plot device. Like Jake is an object in DS9, and it's my one criticism I'll say of it is the fact of all the other people are rounded characters. Jake is there so Cisco can be a father.
Yeah.
And they never really untangle that. They never really go, but what does Jake want? Because they kind of go down the route a little bit, but then I don't know, it's this odd thing where they want to have a laissez-faire kind of character, but then they sort of don't want to focus on him too much. And then and I wonder if it's like down to Sir Lofton at all, because I know he's great, but it's this idea of like, I wonder if they were like, oh, okay, this actor doesn't really care that much, whereas the other actors, like obviously Jesse Aaron Eisenberg. I nearly said Jesse. Aaron Eisenberg, like obviously was like, hey,
son.
It's just like, hey, I want to do more with this and stuff. Which, hey, Dave Gregory, right? Welcome to the chat.
Hey, Dave.
But and Jake's always that. But to go back to Rom, it's the idea of I obviously I'm going to turn everything into stuff that I can relate to. But I think the wonderful thing about Rom is being a fish out of water. And it's a wonderful sort of like metaphor for society where we kind of go, hey, this is what a man needs to be in our society, where you go, hey, in order, like, I have to say, as a proud and out gay man who doesn't give a shit what people think, and I just go, hey, I'm going to like this thing, I don't care what people think, and I'm going to do this thing and I don't care what people think. That is something that you learn as a gay person, because you kind of don't get to fit into any of the groups growing up. But then I see a lot of straight people and straight culture and go, wow, that's really heavy. Like the idea of, you know, the sort of lads, and the, oh, you got like football, you got like this, you're not allowed to like that.
In male, and it's not really talked about, but there is an expectation in male culture, especially in the north of England as well, where you have to be hard as nails, you have to like football, your job is not a real job unless you're out there, you know, in the outs, you know, out in the open, being a brick.
You've got to have a girlfriend. You've got to start a family. You've got to do this. You've got to be earning loads of money. You've got to be the breadwinner.
There's a lot of expectations.
You're not allowed to wear that. You're not allowed to wear this. These are the men's colors and stuff. And oh, you're not allowed to watch shows like this. There's so much pressure on straight men. And obviously, I'm not going to be the person going like, oh, what about straight pride? But it's accepting how suffocating society can be to everyone in it from different angles. And the idea that Nog is like a representation of, Rom is a representation of that in Trek, to basically go, he is a shit Ferengi. He can't do the lads thing. He can't do the, oh, throw everyone under the bus kind of thing, be cold and like discompassionate. You know, only care about profit and stuff. He doesn't give a shit. All he cares about is the happiness of his son, and he likes fixing things, and he loves his brother.
But this is,
and that makes him an outsider on DS9 among the Ferengi thing.
He's an outcast in amongst Ferengis, but this is the episode where we really see Rom come into his own, where we see him towards the end of the episode realize who he is and who he wants to be. And this is the awakening moment for him.
Yeah.
It's brilliant, because up until this point, Rom, as you said, has been the bumbling idiot brother, where it's just like, well, actually, no, there is more depth to this character than you know. He is highly intelligent, and he is now utilizing the confidence he has gained all the way through this episode to pursue what he wants to do, not what Ferengi culture expects him to do.
Yeah, if you only judge a monkey on its ability to fly, or a bird on its ability to like I don't know, operate heavy machinery. I'm trying to think of something a bird can't do. But it's this idea, then it's going to fail. So it's like, hey, if Rom tries to be a Ferengi, he does a shit job of it. But then what we realize over DS9 is he's not a bumbling idiot. He's actually a technical genius.
Yeah.
But that's something that they don't care about because it's not like it's not profitable. It's not profitable to be the person inventing the thing. It's profitable to be the person licensing the thing. And it's very much that kind of find your tribe. And we say it a lot in the gay community, well, the LGBT plus community. We say sort of, hey, if you don't like the tribe you're in, find new friends and stuff. And it's the wonderful thing that we have at Nerdy Up North, where we've had a couple of people say to us kind of thing, hey, my friend base used to just be dickhead lads who only wanted to drink and only talked about this, that, and the other. And now they're part of a community with Nerdy Up North where they can talk about the crazy anime they want and they don't have to hide it. They can talk about all of these stupid things that they love and they're really geeky about. And it's find your tribe. And what we see from Rom is he goes, oh, Ferenginar is a big pile of shit for me. Oh, the Federation and Starfleet is actually kind of fun and does all of the stuff that I care about. And he segues over to it. And that helps Nog basically realize his dream of being in Starfleet. And I just think it's beautiful as a plot arc, and only DS9 can tell the story so beautifully.
But it's great that they challenge the taboo, especially in American culture, of unions within this episode, because obviously the plot is Rom has got this infection, he's not allowed sick days, and then there is a Bajoran ritual cleansing going on for a month where all Bajoran people have to forego all worldly pleasures for a month. So
it's like dry January that we've got at the minute.
It's like dry January, but less shit because they're in space and there's jumja sticks. So it's plus Bajor is actually nice and it's not the northeast of England. So the bar is quiet, because most of the patrons, who are Bajorans, because it is a Bajoran station, are not there. So no one is gambling, profits are down, no one's drinking. So Quark comes to the decision where he's going to cut everyone's salaries by a third. Not, oh, this only lasts for a month, we'll make this sacrifice and then we'll pop them back up. He just goes, this is an opportunity for him to gain more profits from his staff by using the ritual cleansing as an excuse. So,
and I love that how this parallels real life,
right,
like this parallels stuff that has happened now, where it's the fact that Rom basically goes, oh well, when the festival's over, you'll put our wages back up, won't you? And Quark's like, no. And this is exactly what we got during the pandemic. The British government, well, Rishi the twat Sunak, that is slander, by the way, basically just went, well, just basically said, like, sort of, oh, okay, Russia's charging more for fuel and stuff. So what we'll do is we'll raise the rates. So we'll take the limits off all of the fuel companies and then they can raise their rates. And then as soon as Russia turned around and went, okay, cool, everything's gone back to normal, the supply chain's like back to normal kind of thing, lowered the price of everything, they kept the rates exactly where they were, and then nothing would have made them lower their rates unless they were made to. And that horrendous profiteering where you're just going, so you're using, it's just weird, like that they would just go, oh well, we can't lower the rates now that we're charging this. But
coincidentally though, Rishi Sunak, who his constituency, guys, is 30 miles from where we live in Richmond, right? So it's the northeast, it's cold. Congratulate Rishi Sunak on building a swimming pool at his home in Richmond, in the northeast of England, where it's cold.
Yeah.
So,
well, he's obviously good at forethought.
He's good at profiteering. And unlike Captain Tom's
did we
relatives,
pay for that pool, by the way?
Well, at least he got permission, unlike Captain Tom's relatives. So but it is. You see, in the UK, we have a long-standing tradition with unions and unionism, and especially in
the Labour Party was born from union.
Yeah, and especially in the north, and more prominently the northwest and the northeast of England, we had the 80s. Do you see where I'm going with this?
I love how you were just like, you're going to get to talk about Thatcher on this episode. And I was like, oh, I wasn't planning to. And you're just like, I will take you there if I have to fucking drag
we
you.
feel very strongly. We feel very strongly about unions and unionism here at Nerdy Up North because obviously our history in this area stems from the unions fighting for their survival, people's survival in this area, and the current government, who was also in power in the 80s, tore through the unions like a knife through hot butter and decimated the northeast of England. So there is a little bit of animosity when it comes to the Conservative Party.
Let's just talk quickly about all of the good things that Thatcherism brought us. I mean, look at the fact that she managed to open up all nationalized services for being bought, so that now they're absolutely in destitution and falling apart, and we're going to have to spend billions of taxpayer money in order to buy them back, purely to actually fix them so that they actually serve the public now. I mean, what an amazing move that was, for some shitty short-term profit.
Are you telling me that you are unhappy with the fact it costs £250 to travel by train from Newcastle to London, whereas it costs £60 by plane to travel from Newcastle to London? Are you not saying that is not fair and economical and viable?
It's the ludicrous fact that, like, you know, you just kind of go like, oh, I'm furious, because obviously if you're not aware, if you're from abroad or whatever, living overseas, we've recently had a whole year of strikes. 2023 was basically the year of everyone going on strikes, where all of the rail companies, basically, where the rail workers went on strikes simply because they're being treated like shit. And you have to, this is the whole joy of this episode of DS9, is covering just how stupid businesses are, that they just slit their own wrists effectively, you know, where they just kind of go like, because what we had the Thatcher opened up the railways to be privatized. I think they were privatized under Major, I think. She privatized loads of stuff, but not the rail. But she opened it up, and she was like, she was looking for offers before she got, like, you know, kicked out. And then Major, basically under Major, it was like going, hey, cool, we'll sell them off. And then it just means that they don't get fixed. They don't get, like, maintained properly. So the service goes bad because they're just going, hey, why would we waste time making the trains run properly or fixing them up or spending money on them when that could be profit in our pocket? Why would we keep the workers happy so that they do a better job and that the engineers do a better job and that we have more engineers when that will cost us more profit? And then what does that mean? It means they all fall apart. And now what we're seeing is like £100 each way tickets to London, which no one is going to pay, or, you know, only the rich are going to be able to afford, meaning that people don't travel. I mean, imagine if it was nationalized again and that it was only sort of £20 a fare anywhere in the UK, like it is in Germany, where you just kind of go, hey, just jump on a train today, travel all the way down to London for 20 quid and spend loads of money in London. Go to Norfolk, like go to Norfolk, or go to, like, sort of Weston-super-Mare or something and start splashing cash around there. That would be great for British society, but we don't, because we need a reason to go to Weston-super-Mare. And then some people literally can't travel to these places because of how expensive it is.
Sci-fi Queens in the chat. Hello, Nita, me love. Hope you're well. All the way in Brooklyn. But she says it sounds like a huge difference between trains and planes, and yes, it is, because it's they want you to be more green, but then they're like, do you want to spend £250 on a 4-hour journey on a train, or £60 for an hour journey? Yes, you have to wait 2 hours, but like
have a half-empty train.
Yeah,
have a half-empty. Have like a sort of quarter-full train running all the time because no one can afford to be on it. That's going to be worse for the environment than having if the train is going to run and you're going to make it run, then why not have it full and doing things and carrying people around?
But then you look at the majority of the strikes, and I can speak from personal experience, where it's just like the event of the pandemic meant inflation went through the roof. but the salaries did not catch up on it, and everyone's going, hey, we would kind of like to pay our bills and also eat this month. And the jobs are like, well, you are getting what you deserve. And it's just like, no, this is like reflective of 2019. This is 2024. We would like to, you know, I make more money than I ever done in my entire life, and yet I am worse off, far worse off than what I was when I was earning £10,000 less, and it's insane. But that is the state of the country, and that's why there is a lot of strikes.
And the whole problem is that it's because they've just gone, oh, we're not going to up your pay, even though things are getting more expensive. And you're just going, yeah, but the whole point is the reason why Debenhams are going bust, the reason why Wilco's are going bust, the reason why all of these companies are going bust is because if people were paid more money, they'd be able to shop there. But no one has any money to buy anything. No. So it's this weird thing where you're just going, if workers are paid more money and companies make less profit, then companies make more profit because more people have more money to spend. And it's just this, like we see in this episode, it is the short-sightedness of greed that just goes, oh, but if I have all of my stuff here and I don't give any of it out, then I don't lose any money. And it's like, yeah, but you don't gain as much as you would be if you were good with money. But this is the situation we have. It's the same as we had with the writers' strike in Hollywood, where it's the idea of going, how much money have they lost? How much good favor have they lost? And how much wasted airtime is there? Because it means that shows, like with Star Trek, it's going to be 2 years until we see any more of them. And you're just going, what? All that loss there just because you wouldn't pay people a bit more.
But then you see, then the counter, but then you see, they actually do have a lot of money, and it's infuriating. And again, from personal experience, where we have got no money, but we are also doing this and doing this and doing this, and you're like, but you said you don't have the money to do so. With this one though, it's also steering away from the UK. This the discussion of unionism and talking about this in America again is very taboo, where you get stores that are threatened with closure if the staff even mull the term union. And you know, their head office gets wind of it and they're like, we will close you. And this is exactly what Bar Association does, where, you know, Grimp says, you know, the FCA's got ears everywhere. Little side note, Grimp, Jason Marsden plays him. I thought it was Aaron Eisenberg at first, but it's Jason Marsden. He was in Monsters Today in the early 90s. And he was Boone in Fallout New Vegas. So that is
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So, but he says, you know, very much a parallel of American society. You know, oh, they've got ears everywhere. They can listen to you. And yeah, and you see that in when game studios try to unionize, when stores try to unionize, they are threatened with redundancies, and the shops are threatened with closing down, because they would rather take the hit of closing down that store and foregoing all profits on that store than dealing with collective bargainism. And it's just it's insane. And
it's how dangerous the concept of freedom is in America. Like the idea of freedom of speech, the idea of people being free to express dissent and being free to sort of go, hey, I don't agree with this. And that is clamped down on. It's the irony of America being called the land of the free, when, like, I was speaking to someone the other day, because I'm fairly ignorant about all of this, but the idea of, they don't have paid holidays, do they? You just take, if you want to have 2 weeks off, don't you need a really good job, but otherwise, don't you just not work for 2 weeks? Like, you can take as many holidays as you want, but you just don't get paid for them.
I think the minimum is 2 weeks paid vacation. I think that's the standard, unlike
they do have some. Okay.
Yeah, unlike in Europe and the UK, where it's 33 days or 6 weeks.
Yeah. But they do have them in America.
Yeah. It depends on the jobs, because you do get other companies where people they tried the experiment of take as much time as you want off, and everyone's like, that's brilliant. But then it was sort of a double-edged sword, because they're like, take as much time as you want off through the year for your vacation, for your mental health. But then it's reflected poorly when they go, you did take 3 weeks off And, you know, a
Yeah.
company that we really need everyone here. It just shows that you're
Yeah.
not
Oh,
committed
you
enough.
didn't work yourself to the
Yeah,
bone, so you're not committed
you're
enough.
not committed enough to the, and it's sort of a double-edged sword with that. It's very, I always
Which is what
associate it.
Rom has in this. Which
I
is what Rom has, where he's like he could have taken time off, but he wouldn't have got paid for it, kind of
and
thing.
he would
So
have been
instead, he
made
works himself into sickness.
yeah. And I know I always parallel it with Japanese culture in the 90s, where it was the same. You do 60, 70, 80 hours a week, work yourself to the bone, first thing in the morning, last thing at night, and it would kill people. Thankfully, you know, Japanese culture has reformed working practices, but they are still pretty, you know, some companies have company anthems that must be sung every morning, and, you know, you have to be there at least 2 hours early and stay there at least, you know, an hour or 2 hours after that. I've had jobs as recently as 2021 that did that, where you are expected to be there early and you are expected to literally be the one that turns the light off. You don't get paid for it. They don't expect you. They want you to do it for the love of the company. And Rom
and then do nothing to give that to reward that.
But like
commitment.
Rom says in this episode, you know, the culture is exploitation, and then we work to become the exploitee. So
I wrote that down. Hold on, where is it? Where did? Where did I write it down?
FiQueens has just said there. Yes, we have vacations, but it's limited, and it can affect your review if you take vacation, and then you need to take medical leave.
See, how shocking is that? Like, it's just. Yeah, yeah, okay, cool. This is the line. What is it? Ferengi workers don't want to stop the exploitation. They want to find a way to become the exploiters.
Yeah.
And it's very much like this view we have of Americans or whatever, where all Americans are just embarrassed millionaires, where the poorest people will defend the rich because they think one day they're going to be rich. But they don't quite realize that the whole system is set up so that they can never get there. They just have to shut up, do the work, and keep going for that carrot on the stick. And, you know, like and it is just like terrifying that the system is set up like that, so that they're kind of just, you know, going towards the carrot all along without like the sort of getting to enjoy themselves.
So they go on strike in the episode, and I do love there was a little scene where they're outside of the bar, and Rom is thanking everyone for not being a patron of Quark's Bar and giving them money to do so, and then you see Bashir and O'Brien.
Yeah.
First of all,
this is a great little
before we get to this scene, we do get Sean O'Brien's backstory.
Well, what we get is we basically have it where when Rom goes to sickbay to see O'Brien to see Bashir about his ear, Bashir mentions
about talking about the unions,
mentions like, oh, you should form a union, you know, kind of thing. And then Rom immediately does that and goes to the workers and basically says, hey, you know, I think we should start a union, and gets them all on his side, bizarrely, which is great because it's the first time we get to see Rom standing up for himself because he's very passionate about this non-Ferengi kind of thing. But then he goes back to sickbay while Miles O'Brien's in there getting like a cyst removed from his neck, and basically goes, hey, I did that thing you told me to do and I started a union. How do I do it then? And Bashir's like, I didn't tell you. I just kind of suggested that. I didn't say go on strike. And then obviously Lord God Miles O'Brien chimes in with, what is it?
What Sean O'Brien?
I wrote it down. That's it.
It's Pennsylvania. I'm going to find.
Who do you think led the Pennsylvania coal miners during the anthracite strike of 1902?
It was Sean O'Brien.
Aloysius O'Brien.
He was a union man.
I love that. This is the most iconic line from DS9 of he was a union man. But then he explains like how heroic it was that his ancestor was a union man, and then goes into how horribly he died because he got murdered.
Yeah, it's like 11 months the mines were closed, and they weren't opened again until after all the workers' demands were met. Sean's body was discovered a week before this strikes ended with 32 bullets in him. What was it? 34.
Yeah, and it's the idea of you just see Rom be like, oh dear, I didn't know that. And
But
that's
it's
one
the
of the things.
wink at the end.
Yeah. But it's this thing of, though, Rom is a comedy character, and then this episode manages to find that tiny tightrope balance between him being a comedy character and also being a very serious political character, and it's wonderfully done. I've just seen Sci-Fi Queens. Rom is so brave because he's so progressive. It was what I was saying earlier about the idea of he represents going against the expectations of your society when you realize that it's toxic for you. But also, I love you being here, Mr. Tierney. Like, it is very much the idea of, I'm glad that Scottish people hate the Tories as much as us.
But yeah, getting back to O'Brien and Bashir on the promenade, where they're watching people, they're taking bets on who's going to go in and who isn't, and obviously the Vulcan walks away. And then I think this is the second time we see the Packlets. Because I wrote it down, and in big capital letters, bloody Packlets that walk in. We are smart.
I was laughing about like how everyone is in this episode. I'm pretty sure the only things we don't get in this episode is we don't see Jake and we don't see Nog. Everyone else is represented. Even
Academy, isn't he?
Yeah, even bloody Packlets. Like, we even actually see we have Packlets come back. We have Norsicans in it.
Yeah.
We have Brunt, we have Jeffrey Coombs. We have everything in this episode, and it's wonderful.
Would you have wanted to see, because obviously Worf walks into the bar. Because
well, that's what we see with sorry, what you were saying is Bashir and O'Brien are watching the bar to see who breaks the picket line. So who walks past the strikers and still goes into the bar, like it is a scab. And obviously, there's some Packlets go in because they're known as being stupid. So it's a bit of a little joke there of going, hey, we've got the stupidest race in Star Trek, and they're the only ones that will break a Union line. And then they have like a Vulcan known for being the most intelligent and wisest character race in the galaxy, and they refuse to go in, which is smart, which is a nice little nudge. And then obviously they have Worf, and they're all going, nah, Worf will never go in. But then he does. So what they do is they just go, no, we're going to follow him and tell him what he's done wrong, kind of thing.
Would you?
And then what do we cut to?
Yeah.
What do we cut to after this thing?
They're all in the brig because of being arrested. Bashir, O'Brien, and Worf have been arrested for a brawl on the promenade. Something I am fuming that we never got to see, because apparently Bashir got thrown over a fucking table by Worf. And I would have loved to have seen this massive disagreement. I so wanted to see O'Brien, a Union man, the greatest Starfleet officer who ever lived, stand up to this 7 foot, 6.5, 7 foot tall Klingon. But I really wanted to see O'Brien stand up for his values, no matter who it is. He has still got those values, and he will confront them face to face to go, no, what you are doing is wrong, and this is why it is. Like, he wouldn't just go in and throw a punch. He would explain to them what is happening, why it is happening, and why what you are doing can be construed as wrong to everyone on the station to which you have just moved to.
And this is the thing, though. It's the wonderful statement here of how important it is to support unions and to support striking workers. Even if you're not the one on strike, you need to support them. And you need to sort of go, hey, don't go again, don't break the line, kind of thing. Like, these companies need to, suffer, basically, because of how they've treated unions. Because as we see, people don't go on strike lightly. No one goes on strike lightly. There's a narrative of basically like, oh, well, they'll just drop tools at any kind of inconvenience. And you're like, no, it takes years of being ignored. Because it's such a serious thing. It takes years of being ignored and being mistreated and being underpaid and whatnot until the idea of a union and the idea of going on strike ever occurs. So as soon as a strike happens, you just go, that company's failed pretty badly to ignore its workers that much. It's the idea of how you could support a company like that, knowing that it's ignored its employees so heavily,
Mr. Tierney has said O'Brien would stand up to anyone on board any starship. Yep. And Sci-Fi Queen. So many people badmouth O'Brien. I don't understand why he was the greatest officer. He is the greatest officer who ever lived. He fought the Cardis. That's the Kardashians. Not Cardassians. Kardashians.
Well, I think the Kardashians would also break a strike line.
They have.
So
that's
it. So technically, O'Brien would beat up the Kardashians.
When I was in America, ironically, when I was in America, they were one of the few shows. Them and Drew Barrymore crossed the picket line, and they got some steam for that, man. I mean, when I was in LA,
rightly so. No one likes a scab.
When I was in LA, you go past the studios. They're probably wondering what's that weird accent coming from that car going past, because I'm just like, give him hell, mate,
wangers,
and they're just like, what is that a Scottish person? What? But you have to show that solidarity, and for Worf, I would just really would have loved to seen that interaction between O'Brien and Worf, and to see it escalate. But we don't, and we see the first appearance of Sisko.
But I think it's the idea of I don't think we need to see it, because the writing is so well that we can kind of fill in the blanks ourselves. It would have been fun to see, but this is the wonderful thing about DS9, where it knows what bits you don't need to see. And obviously that kind of contrasts with stuff like Discovery, where it goes, hey, you don't need to see this, but we're going to spend 20 minutes or a whole episode doing this bit that you don't really care about and you don't really need to see, whereas in this point, all we need to know is that an altercation happened. There was an argument because they had two different points of view regarding striking workers and whatnot. Because obviously Worf will have just been like, oh, but it doesn't affect me kind of thing. I just need a drink and I don't care if they get paid more or whatnot, which is the selfish kind of, oh, well, doesn't affect me, that we get in society. This is the reason why we have the Tories in government, because people are like, oh, well, none of their policies are going to hurt me. And you're like, well, I'm glad you enjoyed the pandemic, because,
enjoy being
that's what happens when you put shitheads in charge.
Enjoy being overcharged for your heating. I love though, because O'Brien asked Sisko if they can go from the brig. Sisko says, oh yeah, you can in the morning. And then he has.
I just want to point out. Sorry, I'm interrupting you so much, but I'm so passionate about this episode. I'm sorry, Goodwill, but it's this idea of, we see Sisko 23 minutes into a 45-minute episode. What other Star Trek could do without the character that is seen as the main character for this long?
To how good the entourage is in this show. This is why a lot of people consider Deep Space Nine to be the greatest. Me and Synoiz, we both agree on this. This is the greatest Star Trek series that has ever been created, because 23 minutes in, the star of the show appears. We don't even realize he is not there up until this point, because every character is strong. But then when he is there and he's having the meeting with Quark, it's so a good minor scene. This is the thing, though. It's
two minor. He's on screen for about 6 minutes of a 45-minute episode, but he stays with you because of how good Sisko is. But he's not needed for the whole thing. He doesn't need to be looming in the background. He doesn't need to be Michael Burnham, where he's in every single shot. It's that joy of just being like, yeah, Sisko exists. He is an entity on the ship, and he is in this plot.
But it's brilliant because Sisko essentially just goes. Sisko has refused the protesters, the picket line, to be moved away from the bar. We know that from Odo, because it's their freedom. It's their freedom of speech, freedom of expression, freedom to protest. He brings Quark to the ready room and just basically says, you will speak to Rom, and you will speak to Rom today. You will resolve this today. Otherwise, the Federation, who has overlooked rent payment, maintenance fees, and power consumption for the last 5 years, will come a knocking with a very hefty bill. And he knows, but this is the good thing, though. This is what, because we get a bit of context from Quark, where to even talk with someone who is in a union or doing a strike goes against every Ferengi cultural belief, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
And Sisko goes, I appreciate that, but you will do this, because then he understands one side of Ferengi culture, but then he appeals to the other side of Ferengi culture of not spending money when they don't have to. And then if he goes, we have been good landlords up until now, and if you don't break this, we will send you the bill. And it's brilliant tactic.
It's the genius of it, where, because like you're saying, it's the fact of like Sisko's thing, like how Picard doesn't like kids, like how Janeway doesn't like things that exist.
Hybrid murder is what she enjoys the most.
Or tea, as we find in Prodigy, where she just hates having to have bloody sort of like lemon tea.
She's
or whatever.
The anti-Picard. It's brilliant.
But it's the idea of like Sisko's main thing is he doesn't like Ferengi. He doesn't trust Ferengi, and he doesn't like Picard or Borg. But it's this idea of over the show he learns to rethink how he feels about Ferengi due to characters like Rom, due to characters like Nog, and it is kind of a wonderful bit of character progression. But it has it where he has Quark by the balls here, where like he basically just goes, okay, I understand that you're going to get in trouble if you actually agree to a union's demands, because that's going to validate union activity, and then you'll get punished by the FCA. However, we have let you stay on the ship for free. You have paid us no rent. You get free energy because we don't give you energy bills. And also we have engineers fixing all of your equipment all the time and whatnot for free. So we're just going to give you the bill for 5 years of that if you don't sort this out. And effectively gives Quark the ultimatum of going, hey, do you want to pay all this money that you don't have? Or do you want to get in trouble with the FCA that you might be able to get out of? And obviously Quark goes, that's a very Ferengi way of doing things, okay, I'll sort it out.
The Gentle Dorks, as you said there, the scene is a testament to both the writing and the act, and Avery and Armin's acting skills. It's brilliant, because it's like I said, Avery Brooks is only in, like Synoiz said, Avery Brooks is in for 6 minutes in total, but the writing is basically Sisko knows Quark and knows how to appeal to Quark. Quark has made his case where I can't talk to the unions. It goes against our cultural beliefs. It's against everything that the Ferengi people stand for. And Sisko just goes at it immediately in another lane where he goes, okay, I appreciate that, but you either, you break this strike today and concede, or you will be financially destitute by the end of the day. And it's brilliant, because other character, even Picard wouldn't be as diplomatic, wouldn't be as blunt as this. Picard would be extremely diplomatic and mediate. Sisko is just gone full Sisko and just gone, do this or you're destitute.
That is what's wonderful about Sisko. He is very much a problem solver.
Yeah.
And the idea of this tells you exactly what you need to know about companies. If we use Quark as an example of corporate greed and corporate inflexibility, which is the reason why corporations fail. Because when you think about it, Quark is actually a shit businessman. Think about it. He has a bar running on an incredibly popular station with tons of tourists coming in constantly. He doesn't pay his workers anything. He keeps his overheads as low as possible, and he doesn't need to pay rent or energy or maintenance for anything. And yet he's still not a billionaire. And you're just going he is actually terrible. And it's this perfect example of going, hey, the people who are running these massive corporations are actually shit. Whereas people who value money more and people who have had to value money more tend to be better with it. And so what we, what we have here is the short-sightedness of going, hey, I'm going to work in a multicultural environment, but I'm not going to adapt to other cultures. And I'm not going to go, oh, wait, we have to do things the Federation way if we're working on a Federation ship. Well, a Bajoran ship or in Federation jurisdiction. And you just kind of go, yeah, if you have a business and you can't adapt to the different clientele and the different sort of things you have to work in, you will fail. And that is effectively what Quark gets slapped with in this scene.
But this is, especially since the pandemic, this is what we've seen in real life. Adapt or die. If you can't, and specifically office
like
workers.
Debenhams, where it just goes like, oh yeah, oh you struggled from the pandemic, but you still claimed profits. Like the nuts thing where we just go, hang on, why didn't you take that money that you gave to shareholders and go, hey, actually, there weren't any profits this year. We need to put this into our savings because we need to make sure that people get their pensions if we go bust. We need to make sure that workers get paid and whatnot. We need to make sure that the doors keep open. But they don't, because they just go, okay, we promised those profits to shareholders, and you're like, well, why is that why is that the priority? Like, surely that is the stupidest thing you could do in the entire world. And then what happens is the last people who get the money are the people who have worked hard, the workers. They're the ones getting told, oh, sorry, you don't get a pension anymore because we spent the pension fund. Yeah, we just spent it. Sorry. And the shocking thing is, obviously, it's never going to happen under the Tories because, they're the ones profiting from this. But it's the idea of just like, yeah, that we don't have laws against this. Like literally, surely they should have stuff where it just kind of goes, oh, right, okay, your company, you're claiming bankruptcy for you've gone into sort of administration with your company. Well, you just can't have any profits, or we get to seize all of your assets or whatnot in order to pay the workers what they're owed. But there's nothing. There are no laws like that.
But
which is
it's you look at the office workers when the pandemic happened. Oh, you can never work from home. You can't work from home. It's not possible, and it's not this. And in the space of a month, here is a laptop. Off you go, home. Bye. And then
it's the epitome of it's not that they couldn't work from home. It's the fact of all these companies are like, oh, by owning office space and owning buildings and owning sort of like, what's it called? Real estate, we can make more money because we make more money by owning this, and the gaining of that. We need to justify having these buildings because of the money that they could give us. And you're sitting there being like, oh, right, okay, so it's not about that people can't work from home. It's about the idea of you need to justify your investments. And
that's exactly what it is.
Appalling.
It showed that people were happier, we were saving fuel, it was better for the environment, people were at home, they were in comfortable places. For people who are introverts, being comfortable,
people went sane. My life improved so much because of the pandemic. And like the simple idea of having an extra 3 hours a day that I didn't have to travel to the office, having a working environment where I could step away from the computer and take some time, make a cup of tea, or like sit down and like literally just take half an hour out and sit in the living room and just kind of like, check my phone or whatever before going back to work. Without someone being like, oh, why aren't you at your desk? And oh, well, I've been looking over your shoulder and I've noticed that you've been looking on other websites and stuff, without having that. And you're just going, oh, wow, I become a better worker, I become a happier worker.
It is because,
what a crazy concept.
Because you don't have again, there's the whole real estate issue where, yes, they make profits from this real estate and they make the justification, oh, well, the landlords are going to lose money. No, you are going to lose money. But then it's the case of, what is the point of middle managers if you are not there to be middle managed and to be micromanaged and to have someone looking over your shoulder? And then I know we're going off on a tangent, but you look at the first half of the pandemic where they're like, this is brilliant production, productivity is up, everyone is, people are isolated, but people are happier, they're getting stuff done. And then suddenly you see the change where it's, oh, well, people are encouraged to go back to work because it's better for mental health, it's better to socialise. No, fuck off. It's wrong. You can socialise online. You can socialise if you want in person. And I'm glad that we have hybrid working. I think it needs to be a little bit better because you do get that. I like a balance. But again, they're like, oh, well, we need this building for it. And then, I think an old job where it's like, oh, we've got this office and we need to justify this office, so you have to come in, and then people come in and they go, oh, well, we're closing this office and now you'd have to travel an extra 30 miles a day to go to this other office. Well, why can't I just work from home and save the cost of fuel? No, because you need to be around people for your mental health. Off you go, and you just like...
this is the crazy thing. Like I had so many, I won't get into it too heavily, but I had massive arguments with my like immediate boss at the time when the pandemic was like over and they were like, oh, time to go back to the office, because it literally was just a kind of, oh, well, back to normal, come in every day kind of thing, spend an extra £1.5 grand on a metro pass for a year kind of, that you didn't need to do for 2 years. And then immediately I was like, no, and I just put my foot down and said, no, I'm not coming in. And they were like, and I get a call at like 9 a.m. being like, oh, why aren't you in the office? And I'm like, because I'm working from home.
But
I'm not coming in. And I very much took a stand on this. But then the hilarious thing is, had all these arguments with them. And then immediately, as soon as it got passed above and it got passed to their boss, they were just like, oh yeah, just let them work from home. Who gives a shit? And then it just got resolved. And I was like, yeah, why was that such a fight?
Here is the benefit of unions, of having this. We were in a position, and we largely can be in it, still be in it, where there was the workers sort of, and I don't want to say backbone in a nasty way, but workers got the confidence. I certainly did. I took a hell of a risk where it was a case of, they would say, oh, well, you have to come in and do this, and I was like, well, no. And I left that job and I went somewhere else. I got to that job and they were like, well, you have to do this and you have to work over for no pay. At one point, I was doing 100 hours a week, only being paid for 40, right? Because that's the work culture. You are expected to do that. You will not find a better job anywhere else. And I'm like, no, I know I'm worth more than this. I know that if a union was in here, they would be like, what the fuck are you guys doing? But it was a company where, don't mention union. Don't mention union. They don't like the word union. And ironically, this is a company owned by someone who owns a football club in my area, and that's all I'm going to say, right? But it was a case of don't mention unions, don't mention unions. I was like, no, fuck this, I'm out. I took the risk, right? And this is in 2021, to leave a paid job, and I actually said this to the head of HR, not just for that company, for all the companies in the football group. I said, I would rather be unemployed with an amazing amount of debt than work for this company one more day. And this is what companies are terrified of, that the culture of you could be replaced by next week if you don't do this. And a lot of people are going, okay, bye, walking out and going to find something else. I did that, and I was very lucky to find a job where I could walk out of my house and be at work in 20 minutes because that's how close I work. And without unions fighting for people, without without collective bargaining, we wouldn't have the the ability to be like, I know my worth. I know I don't have to put up with this kind of shit. I know that the cost of living is this, and I am being severely underpaid. It's getting to the point in the UK where there were websites where they're like, okay, put your job role in, what you do, and we will tell you if you are paid what you should be paid or underpaid.
This is the thing, though. It's the fact of how terrifying the whole system is. Like you say, the system is set up like that so that people don't question it. Yeah. So the idea of just going, oh, well, if you leave now, you can easily be replaced. Whereas the reality is, okay, you get someone fully trained to do my job and to pick up all the pieces of my job and all of the little strings and stuff and the things that I do that you don't know about because you're not paying attention like you should be to everything I do. You try doing that without interruption to service. You can't.
But
that's the realization that, like, I remember when this is probably very personal, but it was basically my brother was like laid off from a job that he had, like where they basically went, hey, we're going to have to make some redundancies. So he got like a redundancy pay and stuff, but he got made redundant. But then the problem is that the people making that decision were just looking at what his job role was and assuming what he did in the company. But then obviously, as happens when you've been in a place for like years, he was going, oh yeah, I do this for this department. I do this for this department. I have this connection with this other one, which means that I can basically get things through really quickly. All these little rapports around the whole company. And I'm the only person that knows how to do tons of things. And that none of the people managing me have needed me to explain any of this or anything. And then as soon as basically he was made redundant, he got a redundancy package. And then they turned around and went, oh, we didn't realize that you were doing the job of about 10 people. And and we weren't paying you for that because we weren't paying attention to it. We were just used to you being able to do stuff. And then they had to employ I think they had to employ 5 people to do his role.
Yeah.
Like, and even afterwards, they were like going, hey, would you come back and just do the job again in order, like, because, you know, we've got 5 people in, but they're all kind of struggling because they can't pick up all of the strings and stuff. And you're just going, oh, shouldn't have made me redundant then. He told them to fuck off. But it was the idea of just going, yeah,
they don't.
And this is what happens, you know.
Learning from experience from myself right now, they don't realize how indispensable and what you do until you are not there.
Yeah.
And then they're like, oh shit, this person is the only person that can do A, B, and C. But the last thing we'll say before we get back to the episode, the other thing that really gets me.
Sorry, chat.
Yeah,
sorry,
chat.
People listening. I'm sorry that we've just used this episode as like a soapbox for
we are having a
Power of Unions,
vent.
But this is the wonderful thing about Trek. The fact of all these idiots being like, oh, Trek isn't political, Trek isn't sort of, you know, social, and Trek shouldn't have all of this stuff in. And it's like going, no, Trek is literally holding a mirror to the world and going, I will tell you this story of the real world through metaphor.
It encourages a dialogue.
Yeah.
This is what this episode does. It encourages a dialogue of the word union, of the possibility of being in a union. The other thing that got me was you see regional salary differences for the same job, and what I have seen in my area where there has been what's called a southern migration, whereas people from London...
Southern migration, that sounds like something sexual.
It does, doesn't it? But unfortunately it isn't. But it's
After a couple of drinks, there was a southern migration.
But it's where the people from Kent, London, that area, obviously the cost of living has got too much, so they have sold up and moved up north where, hey, I could get a 3-bedroom house that I sold for £600,000 up here for £150,000, which
you could buy Sunderland for that much.
It's brilliant, but then in the UK we then have salary differences for the different job based on the location of that job. So for my job, it would be twice as much as it is here in London. But then what's happening is they're going, well, I could actually work from home doing this job, therefore I am relocating. And no one at that HR is going, oh shit, they're not actually in London now, we should look at their salary. No, they're keeping that salary. So what we are seeing up here is people doing the same job, you know, say if I was doing their job, they're getting twice as much as I am. They have made an immense amount of profit on their selling of a home, and then they are now having they now have a second hustle buying and flipping houses up here, which is then in turn driving the house prices up for other people. It's sort of a quasi bastardization of gentrification, and it's insane that no one's looking at it and going, oh, okay, so they do this job and they say they're in London, but they only go down to London once a month, so why do they get a London salary for living on Teesside?
But this is what we had when with the rail strike, because I remember that like the rail workers basically were like, okay, here's our demands and whatnot, and then the rail company basically went like, okay, our best offer is we'll pay you what the other companies in the same city are paying you, and and obviously the admission by them of going, hey, yeah, we are paying you less than all of our competitors, which is, surely indicative. But then the fact of like the strikers were like, and then all of the papers, all of the fucking right-wing fucking, fucking bullshit media were going like, oh, the workers are turning down like, offers from the company, and oh, they just want to cause disruption. And it's because basically the workers turned around and said, we don't want to get paid what like similar workers in the same city are being paid. We want to be paid what the people in Manchester are being paid. We want to be paid what the people down south are being paid. And it's the disparity around the country of just going, why are we paid less up north than we are like down south?
This is why a lot of people went, back to the office you go in London, back to the office in Birmingham you go, back to the office in Manchester, because obviously
to keep the culture there, the same as we see in this episode, where it's where Quark throughout the whole episode is like, but we can't diminish Ferengi culture. We can't change the system, you know.
But he even goes to Rom himself after speaking to Cisco and makes an offer to Rom to make a transfer to
He makes
private
a bribe to
bribe,
Rom.
yeah, to call off the strikes. You know, so he's been held, you know, break this strike, and he's just gone, okay, I won't actually deal with their issues. I will just go to the leader and try and pay him off, because that will just solve all my issues. It doesn't work. And then we get the FCA.
We get that in government, though, where you know for a fact that the heads of all these unions are being offered so many backhanders to be like, hey, just you stop it. You get them to, you know, throw the towel in, you know.
What's this, a brown envelope? Oh, I wonder what this is.
I mean, that's the thing, though. You would take the bribe and then be like, yeah, cool, I'm not going to do anything about it. Oh, you're gonna mention that you bribed me. Oh no, you're not. Right, cool. Thanks.
Ooh,
that's what you would do.
Bribery with blackmail.
Take the bribe money and be like, oh, is it on the books? Oh, well, you know.
But then we see the FCA come in. But we see the FCA come in with Liquidator Brunt, where, you know, the Ferengi government.
Hi,
the
Kirky.
FCA,
thanks for joining us.
Bye, Kirky.
I just want to say hi, gentle dorks. You've been great in the chat. Everyone's been great in the chat.
It's not like the tangents I take when talking about things when recording. So, we do love a tangent here at Trekkin Up North.
Oh, we are. This is the most on subject tangents have been ever on this episode, because it's all relevant.
We have got deep-seated personal issues when it comes to bar association that just bring up a lot of things. But yeah, the FCA come in because obviously they want this quash, because they don't want murmurings of a union on a Ferengi company spreading throughout the trade, you know, spreading throughout Ferengi culture, because then, as we see in the games industry at the moment, one union forms, it's then a domino effect, and then you see, you know, the murmurings at Activision, the murmurings at other games companies. One forms, and then another one starts to form, and then another, then another, then another.
And it's all this thing of basically the companies trying to keep the boot on the workers so that nothing ever changes. Because we've got a culture here, and apparently it's even worse in America, where people don't talk about their wages. Like, people don't say to the person next to them doing the same job, how much do you get paid? And this is how, like, as workers, because we're complicit in this, it's the company's fault, but we're complicit in men and women having a massive pay gap for like sort of several decades. And it's simply because we never thought that actually the female workers were doing the same job as us and getting paid like a lot less, because we don't talk about it, because there's a culture of don't mention it kind of thing. Whereas what we should be doing is we should be turning to all of our colleagues and being like, how much do you get paid a year? Oh, that's like £1,000 less than me. You should speak to the boss. Oh, how much are you getting paid? Oh, I earn less than that. I should be getting what you're being paid. And if this idea
did that on his last day of his previous job, I said to the person training me, how much do you get paid? And he went, this. And I went, I get paid £3,000 more than you. And ironically enough, that job has been advertised 9 times since I left it. So it's going well. But I love the fact the FCA comes in, and obviously they're wanting to stamp out this strike and this talk of union pretty quickly. And we do.
Who's the FCA led by the way?
Liquidator Brunt, FCA, Jeffrey Coombs.
Jeffrey Coombs. Oh, this episode has everything.
But this is where we see, because obviously the start of the episode, Quark wishes he was an only child, and this is what he says to Ron. But then we see at this point, when the FCA comes in, Quark is genuinely fearful for Rom's life when it comes to the FCA, and he's like, I have had to be hard on you to make you a better Ferengi. And I sort of I agree with Quark, because throughout this episode we see that the tough love has technically paid off when it comes to Rom, because it did give him the confidence to stand up to Quark. And no, hear me out. So the tough love, yes, Quark was a bastard. We know Quark was a bastard. But he stood up to Quark, he formed a union, he found his voice, he found his confidence, and he went his own way at the end of the episode. I don't think, without Quark's tough love and pushing him and prodding him, Ron would have done that, because I think Ron would have been quite a little bit more resigned if he didn't have that antagonistic relationship with his brother. That's my takeaway from it. And I do see this. I do see why Quark says this in the scene where he's like, I've had to be hard on you to make you a better Ferengi.
I think this is the thing, because I will disagree with you, but because the thing for me is we're getting it where Quark is saying, I had to be hard on you to maintain the status quo, because when you think about it, the reason why Rom is able to stand up to his brother and do this is because he's been driven to the end of his fucking rope. Yeah. Because it's literally this idea of going, he has been treated like crap for the last time, to the point where he doesn't care anymore. Like, literally, he's just going, like Quark is saying to him, they will get you killed. And then Rom is like, I'm fine with that. And you just go, and while Quark might refer to it as tough love, it's actually bullying. It's actually being horrendous to his brother. And this is the thing, because this is what my childhood was like, where it's obviously me being very, like, possibly on the spectrum. I mean, fucking hell, you've known me for a while, Goodwill. Like, I'm, if I was any more on the fucking spectrum, I'd be Treasure Island dizzy. So it's the idea of, like, it's the idea of just being like, growing up, being a gay kid, being very, very ADHD or whatever, or autistic or whatever the fuck I am. And then it's this fact of my dad was very much lads, straight man, don't be different, don't stick out. And that made my childhood a nightmare, effectively. And that's how I can be who I am now. But I don't thank my dad. I don't be like, oh, thank you for making me feel like shit for so many years and making life so difficult, because it allowed me to give no shits now. It's the idea of just going like, we need to change as a society. And it's more the idea of what it did was make me realize, wow, we need to change that kind of culture of like, oh, try to fit in, like try to cram yourself into the space that you've been given, and so that's the kind of thing. So it's effectively, we're saying the same thing, but what I'm saying is it's a bad way of doing it. But if Rom had been treated with more love, he wouldn't have snapped. If Quark had been a bit kinder to his brother, then yes, he wouldn't have done the Union. But I wouldn't praise Quark for it. I'd say Quark dug his own grave.
I'm not praising, and we do see the consequences of his actions, where he goes back to the bar, and the FCA need to make an example of someone.
I love this scene, by the way.
And they end up just beating the ever-loving shit out of Quark. I mean, the Nauticans.
Well, I love the idea that they won't beat up Lita because she's too pretty, because Brun fancies her. Well, I love, this is the hilarious thing. This is how good the writing and acting is in DS9, though, that I wondered why in the scene where it has Brunt addressing the Union, he keeps making eyes at Lita and getting distracted by her and being like, oh, she's pretty, kind of thing. And I was like, what's the payoff for this going to be? And then later in the episode, it kind of goes, oh, that's why he doesn't beat up Lita, even though she's obviously who Rom is in love with, and everyone can see it. That's why he doesn't go for her. He goes for Quark, And the hilarious thing is, Quark brought them in, technically, to stop the strike. And then Quark ends up getting beaten up by them because that's the only way to maintain the status quo. And it's this idea of going, yeah, if you are a corporation, you're going to get fucked over by the people that you're trying to help, in that weird way.
But a testament to Rom, even in the infirmary, where he's got a crushed eye socket and shattered ascending ribs, where
I love how you remembered that.
It's a kink, but it's where Rom, even in the face of his own brother having the ever loving fuck beaten out of him, will not back down from this Union. Will not call off the strike, and this is a Rom we have never seen before up until this point. And like I said, this is a great episode where a character who was a minor sub character becomes a major player, becomes a confident leader of people. And even this is when Quark. I mean, I love the fact you say Quark, I say Quack, because I just sound like a.
I think you're right though. I think it is. What is it? It's Quark.
I sound like a smoggy.
I think it
duck.
depends on the actors.
I sound like
I love the idea that there's some names in like it's.
Note. Latinum. And a bottle.
Oh, I love it so much. Is that official?
It's official, yes. It was from Star Trek The Experience.
Oh, I love that so much.
Someone brought it over for me all the way back in 2001.
Oh.
But it's where we see Quark. Sorry, Quack. I'm a duck from Middlesbrough. Quack.
Don't bring the Duckians into this. They're
Quack,
the sworn
mate.
enemies of the Geesians.
Do you have a problem? But we see where Quack he realizes that he is not going to back down, and then it's the concession of dissolve the union officially, but unofficially I will give you. I mean, I will give you and the staff everything you wanted. But then even then, he's still negotiating, at the end of the 6 months, when he's like, no.
I love it as well. Like, Quark still tries to fuck his brother over. Like, he's lying in sick bay with, like, a broken eye socket. And he's still kind of like, okay, well, 6 months later, then we'll discuss, like, getting a pay rise and stuff.
I will give you half pay.
Yeah,
and just like...
And then Rom is just like, no, you could just make a fake ledger like you usually do. And Quark's like, oh, fuck. Yeah, okay, go on. Yeah, we can totally do it.
Yeah.
I love it. This is, every character is so brilliant in this.
Can we just briefly address, obviously, Worf's difficulty in adjusting to station life because it is different to the Enterprise. Yeah. And I want you to reference the scene with Odo.
Yeah, this is the thing. It's like, Odo is my favorite character in possibly Trek. Like, the more I watch, that someone
who also says Quark.
Was it Unplanned? Was it Unplanned Trek on Twitter or X or whatever? Because I logged into X because I think you tagged me in something, so I logged into the fucking thing. And it basically had like a thread from Unplanned Trek where it was basically name your 2 comfort characters.
Yes.
And I had to sit down and think about it. And obviously I realized that one of my comfort characters is Odo. Like, I love a good Odo episode. Like, something about his character and just how wonderfully acted he is by Rene Auberjonois is just, that is comforting to me. And that's part of the magic of DS9 for me. And the fact that he's barely in this episode, he only has a couple of things to do in this episode, but he has the scene that I had to send you a photo of, and I sent you a voice note of me just laughing about this because it's so good. But it's just like, I want to talk about that, but let's talk about the other one first.
The burgeoning relationship between Worf and Jadzia all the way through this.
Also the fact of Worf feels out of place. Like, Worf has only been in DS9 for a while, and he's freaked out because it's all very ramshackle. It's not like the Enterprise under Picard, where it's like a carefully oiled machine where they've got all of the stuff to do and everything's in its place and everyone knows their roles and stuff. This is literally a space station with like crazy stuff happening all the time,
it's
like explosions everywhere. Yeah, it's a frontier, and it's and it's this idea of he does not know what his place is because his when he's on the Defiant, when he's on a mission and stuff, he knows, oh, I'm in charge of this and these are the subordinates and stuff like that. But when he's actually on DS9, he's like, why are there all these civilians everywhere? Why are there shops and stuff? Like, and it's this idea of he is not adjusting well to being like in this new environment. And his solution to it throughout this episode is to go and live on the Defiant, to move his living quarters to the Defiant. So when it's not in use, he's just sleeping in there on the Defiant on his own.
I love that.
It's that idea of going, that's not a solution. You're running away from the problem. And Jadzia's role in this episode is to make him confront that and kind of go, hey, maybe the people aren't the problem. It's your ability to deal with people that are the problem. Is the problem.
And I'll say two things about this. One, this B plot spoke to me quite a lot at the moment because I am struggling to adjust to a change in life. And my solution was to run away. And it, for the most part, didn't work because you still have to face it. You know, you can't escape.
Because you haven't blocked me on WhatsApp.
No, because I'm enjoying all the pictures. But you can't escape it. You're going to have, sooner or later, you're going to have to face it. And the second point I wanted to make is where, you know, you will have to adjust to life on the station. And then Worf goes, or maybe it is you people that will have to adjust to me. But what
which is a beautiful bit of writing because effectively it's the same thing from a different angle, and it's a very Klingon angle.
It is.
So it's the idea of basically going, everything will change, but it's going to be you changing from me, you know. And it's like, and I just love it. It's
brilliant because it spoke to me quite a lot. Where it's just like, yeah, you can, like it or not, you are going to have to adjust to your new surroundings, to a new way of life. And I personally am going through that, and it is proven to be extremely difficult. And I have the love and support of everyone around me, and I can't fault that. But it's
and Paul.
And Paul, and it's. I mean, "Oi cunt" is not a very nice, reassuring message, but I get one every day. But it's.
I love that Paul is the epitome of tough love. Like it's just this idea of just like when you realize like how Paul is like as a person, where it's like the idea of when he messages you, he'll say something like really cheeky or something, but then you kind of look past it and you're like, oh, he's thinking of me, you know. And it's that wonderful thing. He shows affection by insulting you, by going, hey, I'm reaching out to you kind of thing in order to call you a bastard.
He's
like
the father.
It's wonderful.
He's like the father that has no verbal ability to communicate their love, but will just give you a dead arm. So that's how you know. But it's what the last scene we see where Worf is setting up his quarters on the Defiant. I love. Jadzia made him a mixtape.
Yeah.
That is so fucking 90s and so on point for 1996 because she's like, I made you a compilation of my favourite Klingon operas. She just went in with the TDK tape deck and just went, boom. Alanis Morissette, Smashing Pumpkins, Nirvana, all there, Gunut Sun. This is it.
Are they all Klingon? Are you saying that the Smashing Pumpkins are Klingon?
Why
is
not?
That? Yeah, actually, yeah. Maybe not Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness.
So
but
I love that. But I did love that line where, you know, maybe it is not you who have to adjust to me. Maybe, you know, you have to, you know, but I have to adjust to you. You have to adjust to me.
And it's this idea of basically Worf is the epitome of a strong character. He is the epitome of a very sort of stubborn, a very sort of like powerful, strong character who has to take time with his feelings, who struggles with feelings, who struggles with responsibility. Like, you know, like he just can't deal with Alexander and whatnot. But this is the idea. It's the idea of he copes and he comes into his own in DS9 because he makes decisions like this, because he goes, hey, actually, I need to slowly integrate in this. So I'm going to sleep on the Defiant until I'm kind of used to things. And I'm going to do that. Like you're doing at the minute. It's the idea of there should never be any shame in going, hey, I need to do things this way for now in order to get there, to get to be. I need to take a bit of a stop in the middle.
There is no template for everyone to follow. Everyone deals with transition, with grief, with change in their own ways. I have never experienced it in such an intense way, which is weird for someone of my age to have that. This is only the second time, but this is like really major. And my instant reaction is shut out, run away, and be on my own. And then you sit there and upon reflection, you're like, maybe that's not the best way, but you don't know that unless you experience it. And we do see with
Yeah.
Worf and what happens with Worf and Jadzia.
What we see with Worf, though, is he running away for Worf would be going back to the Enterprise. It would be going back to the life he knew because that's all he's capable of dealing with. What he does by staying on the Defiant, by forging the sort of friendship with Jadzia, that's the middle ground. That's the kind of chrysalis thing of going, I can't be on DS9 yet. I can't deal with that yet, but this is my I'm learning stage.
Yeah.
And I think, and that's the thing that everyone does. That's where you are at the minute, where it's the fact of, you can't do 100% this or whatever. You can't be how people expect you to be, stupidly. But it's this idea of, it's finding your way of, here's how I cope with this situation and I will get there in the end. And if I don't, fuck it. The world will need to change and deal with me like this,
Yeah. The last scene though with Quark's bar where it's booming, obviously the ritual cleansing is finished, and we do get very much like Avery Brooks, and our visitor comes in for that one scene with one sentence where she just orders a fuckload of drinks.
I love it. She's literally just finished a festival where they're not allowed any drinks or any sort of vices or sex or anything like that. And then she immediately just goes, I'm going to eat fuck tons of bad food and I'm going to drink tons. And he's just going this is, it's like finishing dry January by getting drunk on February 1st. And you're like,
yeah. But I love it.
I have learned nothing from my experience.
But I love it because the bar is booming. Lita is happy. Everyone is being paid. And then we see Ron walk in, and essentially he quits his job because this whole experience has made him realize he is able to take charge of his own life. And he has begun work with the Bajorans and is a junior grade technician, night shift. And he's like, I am a customer now. I have mopped my last table. And for Quark, Ron reassures him, you've still got to see me. I'm still going to repair your holosuites and your replimats and everything like that. But I am no longer, you are no longer my boss. I am a customer. And we see the slow acceptance of Quark acknowledging this as well, that Rom is becoming his own person.
Well, we see there is a line here that resonates with me massively because it could be seen as an insult, but it's true, where Rom says to Quark, when I was doing the Union stuff, I realized I do a lot better when you're not around.
Yeah.
And it's this whole thing, and I'm going to draw this to my own experiences with my dad, where when I realized that if I just ignore everything my dad says, and I ignore every bit of advice that my dad gives me kind of thing, life gets better. Because every bit of advice was hey, fit in this box, do what I did. And you kind of go, well, you're not the happiest person in the world, so do I want to? And then realizing that, and then obviously with this, where Quark is trying to fit Rom into the box of being a typical Ferengi, which he is just not built for.
Yeah.
And then when Rom realizes, hey, if I just ignore everything you say and actually just do what I want to do, I can get rewarded if I'm in the right place.
Yeah.
So when he realizes, hey, he's found his tribe, and it is it the Bajorans or is it the Federation? I don't know.
It's the Bajorans. He doesn't join. Nog joins Starfleet. He joins.
No, but does that mean O'Brien works for the Bajorans?
No, the station is managed by the Federation. It is in Bajoran space. It is essentially a cooperation between the Bajoran government and the United Federation of Planets. So
it's both.
So Starfleet, as we see in the episode, O'Brien goes, because when they're having problems with the ODN relays, O'Brien goes, it is Cardassian technology working with Bajoran technology working with Federation technology. They have never been designed to cooperate together, but here we are.
Yeah.
So,
but I mean, it's the idea of O'Brien is Rom's boss, several rungs up the ladder, obviously. It's the idea of he's not. And we don't ever class O'Brien as working for the Bajorans. We kind of have O'Brien working for the Federation, but on behalf of the
It's
Bajorians.
a joint, yeah.
Yeah,
It's a joint outpost. It's essentially like when you look at the International Space Station, where it is a joint effort between multiple countries.
Yeah.
There is no, we are in charge because they have their ranks and they're like, well, he's in charge. Da 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 da. The Starfleet and Bajoran workers, you've got different technicians with different ranks. The chief is in charge. I mean, O'Brien never was academy trained. He was a field commission. That's and you know, the greatest Starfleet officer who ever lived,
which is crazy,
is a field commission. He is in charge of the station, but then he's in charge of Starfleet officers and the Bajoran officers because this is a cooperative outpost, so they all work together. So, but it's good that Rom went to the Bajorans because he still got that element of Ferenginism where the Bajorans get paid. Starfleet does not. So the Bajorans on the station and all the workers on the station, they are salaried, they have an income. So it's a departure of largely Ferengi culture for Rom, but he's still maintaining that Ferenginism because he is a worker gathering a salary.
But the hilarious thing is that he will actually benefit because of, like, you know, Starfleet communism, because it's the idea of, like, he just goes, oh, so I was working for Quark, I was getting underpaid and I had to pay for everything. Whereas now, because he's joined the Federation, it's like, oh, everything is free and I'll get a replicator and I'll get, like, sort of all of my food and stuff provided for me.
And sick
and vacation. Yeah. And it's just the idea of going, yeah, that is a lot better.
But going back to my previous
rather than
statement,
being like the Ferengi thing and thinking of himself as, oh, well, one day I'm going to throw everyone under the bus and then I'll be in charge and I'll be the one making the money.
But going back,
which is never going to happen.
Going back to my previous statement, though, Rom found out his worth. He got the confidence to go, I am worth more than this. I am better than this, and got a new job. We did a poll on this episode on the Nerdy Up North Discord page and the Nerdy Up North Twitter page. So
I love it. Has it changed?
I will start off with the Twitter page if you want to boot up the Discord one.
Oh, I've got the Discord one. Okay,
so
cool,
the question was, how do you feel about Rom's decision by the end of the episode? The answers were good for him, screw Quark, should have stayed, as in should have stayed employed with Quark, and more FCA consequences. By some would say
we had to shorten this because it was like, A was fuck toxic management, good for him. B was he messed over his brother pretty bad, he should have stayed. And C was there realistically should have been stronger FCA consequences, because everyone does kind of get away scot-free, which is a bit of a plot hole here. But obviously for Twitter we had to shorten the questions
because fuck Elon Musk. By a landslide of 80%, good for him, screw Quark, won. Runner-up being more FCA consequences, but I think a certain...
Were there any votes for B?
Nope, absolutely nothing. What did you have?
Well, this is what makes me laugh, because we had the gorgeous, wonderful, delicious Lee set up the poll on Discord, because I'm an idiot and don't know how to do it, basically. So I just message Lee and be like, Lee, could you do a poll for me?
Get it? He's not fitter. Anyway, go on.
Well, he couldn't be. But yeah, okay. The hilarious thing is, okay, obviously, in the lead, we have fuck toxic management, good for him.
Yeah.
You know, but they did the right thing. We have 2 votes for there realistically should be stronger FCA consequences, which is a higher percentage than the Twitter one.
Okay.
But hilariously, there's 1 vote for B saying he messed over his brother pretty bad, he should have stayed. And when I checked, who voted for that? It's actually NerdBot. It's actually the automated bot that we have creating things on the Discord. So we found out that the AI bot that we have running little bits of stuff on on our Discord for Nerdy Up North is actually a scam. This is the beginning of Skynet. This is what we're witnessing.
You heard it here, folks. The singularity starts here, and it is a scab. It is a picket crosser.
I just love the arguments I get into, because NerdBot like has AI responses. So if you actually talk to it, it'll look at what you're saying and then it'll respond to you. And it doesn't always get it right. But I can just have these massive conversations arguing with it. But I love the only thing that voted in favor of Quark was the fucking robot.
The Gentle Doctor said Quark has hacked the Discord. Yep.
Yep, there we go.
100%.
He's put those little sticks in. I always love that. Whenever he's hacking stuff, he just gets out these little sticks and plugs them in.
we do love inserting sticks into holes. But that was our...
can I just mention some things from this episode that we didn't get into? Yes. Okay, simply because there's loads of stuff that I love about this, and let me just gush about stuff. Obviously, my favorite scene is the one between Worf and Odo. Because basically... Worf and Jadzia are heading back from the Defiant. They go to Worf's quarters, and then they find out that actually he's been burgled. And they capture the guy who burgled him and robbed his room, drag him to Odo in the security office. And Odo's like, cool, we'll arrest him and we'll do this. I'm going to need to give you a statement. And Worf basically says, like, you should be doing a better job here. This sort of thing never happened on the Enterprise. And I sent you a photo of this because this is my favorite screenshot. If I'd noticed it earlier, it would have been one of the pictures running along the bottom of this episode. Because I'll put it in the Discord, but basically, like, Odo gives him the happiest smile I've ever seen from Odo, because it is the smile of someone who is about to lay the smack down. That is it.
Odo got receipts. Odo got receipts, yo.
I fucking love it. It is literally just Odo immediately being like, oh, and then picks up a prepared pad he has next to him that has a list of all of the stuff that we get throughout Next Gen, where they basically get, like, either, the bit where the Ferengi hijack the ship, the bit where they have a guy come on board and he's like a terrorist, but he's disguised himself as like an ambassador, and he just reels off all of these things that have happened, like in TNG, just to go, and yeah, and Worf is like, those were exceptional circumstances. It's like, oh well. But it is just the smile Odo gives, and it's just how well played, like, the character is, that he's just like, no, I'm right here.
I'm going to use that caption I'm going to find it on Trekcore. I'm going to use that caption whenever someone gets fruity on the Nerdy Up North group. I'm just going to post that before I remove them, because it's going to be the most Odo thing possible. I loved that scene though, because it was just like, oh, it never happened on the Enterprise. I happen to have a pre-prepared list of receipts. And it's
Odo is that person who knows exactly what you've done at all times. He is the person who's just like, oh, you never drink, do you? Well, how about these billion situations? Yeah. It's just, and it's so wonderfully done. And it explains to them, hey, this isn't the Enterprise. This is an open port. We are doing the best we can. Like, this is the best we can do in this situation, and bad things will happen, because it is such a sort of work in progress. And I love it, because we get a bit of, this gives us background into Odo's job, and that it builds up a relationship with, like, Odo and Worf, because there isn't really one. They are two characters throughout the show that don't really interact that much. The biggest thing is when Worf first comes on, he has this antagonism with Odo because he was the chief of security on the Enterprise.
Yeah, they butt heads.
And he's very, because there's a whole episode where basically Worf thinks that Odo's not doing his job properly, and it's because Odo is letting crimes happen in order to find who the ringleader is. Like, so there's a whole episode where Worf goes detective.
It's actual police work.
Worf is literally like, oh, find the culprit, arrest the culprit, and that's the job done. Whereas Odo is very much the idea of going, hey, if I let this guy go, he's going to get confident and then start making mistakes, and I'm going to be able to find out who his boss is, so I'm going to be able to arrest the entire syndicate. And that's the scale that Odo's thinking out, whereas Worf is very much like, grab the guy who did the thing and put them in the brig.
It's so... I love Renee Auberjonois. Going back to the post that you were tagged in on Twitter, that your comfort characters.
It just come up on the YouTube, the
Yeah,
bit where you're showing the picture. Oh no, smile, man.
yeah, like what two of my comfort characters, strangely enough, non-Star Trek. One was Edward James Olmos from Battlestar Galactica, Commander Adama,
Yeah.
because it's Adama. And then the other one was Starsky from Starsky and Hutch, David Soul, who Renee Auberjonois did have a guest role in as one of the only criminals that got away in Starsky and Hutch. But he did it in such a deviously charming way, where he just smoked cigars all the time. He's like, yeah, it's a Superba Corona Superba. And it was so daft, but it was the fact, it was a beautiful irony that decades later he would play a constable that would use 70s police tactics to go, no, I have got my connections in the streets because I'm not after the little fish, I am after the big fish. And this is the way things are done on the frontier. Whereas, like he says, things on the if stuff like that can happen on a Federation flagship, imagine the stuff that gets away on a station of this size. And you have to do things differently to apprehend the bigger fish that you want to think. But that I loved this review. I loved Deep Space Nine. We went on tangents in this episode, but they were valuable, relevant, passionate tangents. This is what Star Trek is about. Star Trek is about opening a Discord about these issues and bringing them up and bringing them to the forefront to go, this is an issue happening today that needs to be addressed, that needs to be talked about. And this is exactly what this has done. If this, I absolutely loved it.
I love it. The last thing, hey Captain Squadron, how you doing?
Hey, Joe.
Joe. The other thing is the holographic waiters. The first thing when the Rom and that go on strike, the first thing Quark does before thinking about paying them is spending his own money and losing money by replacing all of the workers with holographic equivalents.
He replaced it with AI.
This is it. This is an episode from 30 years ago, and what we're seeing is exactly what they were trying to do with the fucking striking writers, where they're just going, oh well, we didn't need them anyway, we'll get computers to do it, and everything goes to shit, and all of the things keep breaking, and they all fail, and you're just going like, it's this idea of like capitalism and greed immediately goes to, oh, what can I do that isn't the solution? It's like,
that's what it is. And and it was like, oh, you don't have a portable power source, or like these AI holograms that just fail when you have a battery on you.
You know what doesn't fail? Workers. Like good workers being paid. And then obviously we get we get the first important bit, which is Rom and Lita with a spark of romance. We have the best thing ever, which is way too adult. This is really adult, even for DS9. Is the fact of there's a reference to wanking in this, where it's the fact of it has an amazing scene where Lita comes to Rom and talking after he's just been in sickbay getting his ears checked out. And then she's just like, oh, what happened with your ears? And he's like, oh, well, I didn't go to my latest checkup and I've been getting too many umoks lately. And she's like, oh, who's the lucky lady? Yeah, who's the lucky lady? And he's like, no lady, just me. And she just stares at him. And this is literally him just being like, sort of like going, yeah, I've been wanking a lot. And it's just to the woman he fancies.
But then he's like,
and then she's like, oh, I'm sorry about that, and then he immediately follows it up, smooth as fuck, not really, by being like, oh, well, you can help if you want.
And then just leans forward with an ear.
He's just like, oh, go on. But I just love the idea of effectively Rom being this everyman in a weird way. Like he becomes so relatable, and it's very strange that he's like, he goes from being a stupid comedy character, like he goes from being a shitty evil character which doesn't really have any background, to being a sort of throwaway comedy character, like a foil for Quark, to being this sort of, you can relate to him in a wonderful way. And I just love that he like literally just she's like, "Oh well, I don't think Julian would like that." And he's like, "We can ask him." Can you imagine that? Can you imagine going up to someone's girlfriend? Like, I'm tempted to do it with Lee's wife, and just be like, okay,
But the problem
if she agrees, he doesn't have a leg to stand on,
but the
basically.
problem is,
But he's got three, so it's fine.
but the problem is, she will say yes. Leg to stand on. He's a tripod anyway. And honestly, I don't think he'll have any legs left once you're done with him. So.
Wow. Okay.
And on that note,
but in the last scene, we get to see Rom and Lita before the last scene, we get to see Lita kiss Rom on the forehead, and there's this touching scene between them where we realize that actually there could be romance there. And as we know in DS9, it does become a romance. They do get married, and we have already covered an episode of Lower Decks where we get to see them together as a married couple.
It's a wonderful burgeoning relationship. Again, another burgeoning relationship in this episode. Like you said at the start of this, it is a filler episode, but tackles a lot of really relevant subjects, but also stacks plot elements and foreshadows a lot going forward throughout the season and beyond, which is absolutely it's fantastic. This is brilliant writing on what would otherwise be a middle filler episode between major plots.
To be a bit negative, it's the fact of because TNG didn't really foreshadow stuff too much. You basically had characters that basically we knew what their goals were, but they never really get further with them. Data wants to become more human, but does he? Things happen, but he doesn't really progress that much. He gets an emotion chip and things like that. Whereas, because this is back in the day, people are still talking about Babylon 5 was the first thing to sort of have long sort of, foreshadowing plots and stuff in sci-fi. And you're sitting there being like, what? Have you not watched anything else? We even have DS9 here having these kind of massive plot arcs that are sort of series in the making or whatever, and whole episode character arcs that are whole where characters change a lot over time naturally, not in a kind of Babylon 5 bit where the writer just decided that these two characters need to be friends for one episode and then it never gets mentioned again. And it's just this strange thing of this is a perfect example of the quality of early 90s sci-fi.
Because this was a the whole plot was, unlike the Next Generation, they just can't fly off to the next adventure, which
they're stuck together and they need to develop.
It was an issue that was tackled in Lower Decks where they were like, hey, why don't we go back to that civilization where the Enterprise made first contact with 20 years ago? What's happened since? Oh, they be fucked. And it's like, yeah, because they flew off to the next adventure. Deep Space Nine from the get-go was they have nowhere to fly to. They are there. They are stuck with those people. They have to find a way through it. And this is why for a lot of Trekkies, it's the best series, but it feels like home and it is a comfort. I was talking to Sean Ferrick the other day, and we were on about the comfort episodes, and I said, for me, it's just Deep Space Nine, all of it, because it felt like a family. Star Trek has this big representation of family throughout every series, including some that we won't mention. But this one, it was a family in a home. And Deep Space Nine, for a lot of Trekkies, feels like a home. Because
and they're all a family.
Yeah, they are.
All even the relationship, the great relationships between Quark and other characters, like Quark and Jadzia having this good relationship, and Quark and Odo having this total hate relationship, but that still is a relationship. Yeah. It's really good.
If you have never watched Deep Space Nine, I implore you, I beg you, watch Deep Space Nine. Watch it in its entirety and then come back to us and tell us how it changed your life, because it is the very best of Star Trek in every possible way that you can imagine. I urge everyone who hasn't to watch it, and you'll understand why me and Synoiz love it. However,
if you have watched this whole episode, if you've listened to us for this whole thing, and you haven't seen the episode, because I know some of the fans of Nerdy Up North, like Beth and maybe Sammy, like they listen to us talk about stuff and they enjoy listening to us talking about stuff, but they don't actually watch the episodes. Do it. This is the episode that I'm saying, go on Netflix, go on Paramount, go on whatever you've got, and watch Bar Association from DS9. This is a great little, even if you don't know the show, you can watch it and hopefully enjoy the magic that is DS9.
Well, speaking of watching, we do have an incoming transmission.
Incoming transmission.
That's right, you thought it was the Dabo wheel of episodes. You are wrong, because next week, me and Science Officer Synoiz are starting our movie reviews. And as you can tell by the
I'm not ready for this.
As you can tell by the... You will be ready for this. As you can tell by the face palm Synoiz is making at the moment, we are going to go in chronological order of the Star Trek movies, and we are starting with Star Trek.
Until they get good.
The Motion Picture. 1979 Lycra and plastic has never looked so bland than the Motion.
I'm glad you went in that direction with the sentence. I've already sent you a picture about how it looks like a fucking, like living room color swatch. The whole that poster is far more colorful than the entire movie put together.
This was Crimson Dabo. You're wrong. This was Paramount's knee-jerk reaction to A New Hope. It was shit. Find me a script. Get this on screen. There are about 70... This has become Blade Runner for Star Trek, because there are about 17 different versions of the motion picture, wherever you get it from. Different version on VHS, DVD, Blu-ray, 4K Blu-ray, Ultra HD, Wig-Wham, Walla Walla Bing Bang disc. Whatever version you watch, they're all going to be the same story. Next week, we are starting our movie review, the motion picture. We are going to power through it all together. We are a family. We will get through this to the Wrath of Khan, because we're going
to need alcohol.
I
haven't been drinking this week. I'm going to need alcohol for this one.
I genuinely don't know, because the powers that be at Paramount don't know what they're doing. I don't know if this is on a streaming service, if this is on Paramount Plus.
It's on Netflix. It's on Paramount.
I don't think it's on Netflix.
Oh.
Right. Just because I love you guys.
We'll find it out. I cancelled my bloody Paramount Plus because I couldn't find fucking... What's it called on there? I couldn't watch Strange New Worlds on it.
You know, that Paramount
It was
exclusive
so
show.
dumb. Literally, I went to Strange New Worlds, like season 2, to rewatch the episode with Umbenga when we had David on the show, and it wouldn't let me. I went to Strange New World season 2, paying for Paramount Plus, and then it went, hey, not available. And you're like, that's why you exist, Paramount Plus. You exist so I can watch Strange New Worlds.
in the UK, this is available on Paramount Plus. This is available. This is, I'm hoping, the new director's edition that they're updating, the 4K one. The story is largely unchanged for this one. I urge everyone, if you've never seen the Star Trek movies, it's like if you watch Star Wars on May the 4th, you have to get through the Phantom Menace. Phantom Menace. Get through the motion picture. You do. There are elements of the motion picture I love as a Starship connoisseur. As a fashion reject, I really detest it. But we will get to the Wrath of Khan. We will get to the Monster Maroons. We will get to Ricardo Montalban. We will get to the good stuff in February. But next week, live, 7:30 p.m. GMT on the Nerdy Up North YouTube channel, we begin our movie review with Star Trek 1, The Motion Picture.
Spicy.
Very spicy. Guys.
Spicy.
It has been another long episode yet again, so I do apologise, and I would like to thank each and every one of you who have tuned in live.
You've been great, chap. You've been
you
amazing, Chet.
Did you like this episode? Did you like Bar Association? Did you not like Bar Association? Leave us a comment below.
Are you a union man?
Are you a union man? You have to be a union man. If you
Are you like Sean O'Brien?
It's going to be one of the entry questions for Nerdy Up North pretty soon. Have you seen the Goonies? Will you subscribe to our channel? Are you a union man or woman?
Can you imagine what was Sean O'Brien? And you can't join Nerdy Up North until you reply with, he was a union man.
How many bullet holes did
we just have no new followers?
I know, it'd be brilliant. But yeah, so thank you so much. If you are not a subscriber to the Nerdy Up North YouTube channel, what are you doing? Hit that subscribe button right there. Tickle that bell. Caress the bell.
Press the like if you haven't already.
Yes.
Press the like if you haven't liked already. I'm going to be on Nerdy Up North on Sunday. Because on the live episode this Sunday, we are covering the Studio Ghibli film Spirited Away, which is wonderful. So I love that my weekend, after the nightmare that was DragCon last weekend with like 17-hour days and stuff, I get to literally spend tomorrow. I get my new Warhammer books because the old world has come out, and I finally get my new books and models tomorrow. So I'm going to be watching Ghibli movies, watching Star Trek: The Motion Picture, watching other things that I need to catch up on, and putting Warhammer together. So it's going to be a great little relax, I think. And then we're doing that at 7:30 on Sunday.
7:30 p.m. GMT on the Nerdy Up North YouTube channel on Sunday. On Monday, we do got. I'm sorry.
We do got
my
on
brain
Monday.
Is
we
shutting
got
down. How can human? My brain is shutting down. On Monday, we do have the lovely ladies of Monsters Up North again at 7 p.m. On Tuesday.
How good was the Blob episode?
Oh,
the Blob
so
episode
good.
was great. They're covering Michael Myers next week.
Not Austin Powers. You're fine.
Yeah, no, Michael Myers from the Halloween series. They're going to be going over that. I do hope they tear into how crap he was in the Rob Zombie remakes. I don't know. I have a suspicion that Dan might have liked the Rob Zombie remakes.
Really?
I'm just kind of, this thing where you just like when you get someone who's a connoisseur, that they tend to have a kind of, when they're really knowledgeable about stuff, they tend to kind of go, oh, well, actually, there's a way you can kind of enjoy that. And I'm wondering, but yeah, I'm going to have to watch it just to hopefully see Dan go, now it's a pile of shite.
On Tuesday, I may be making a return to the Nerdy Up North Twitch channel. Maybe making a return. I don't know. It might be Metal Gear Solid. It might be quiz shows. I don't know yet. I'm debating on what we will have on the channel. It's an anything goes Tuesday. I'm gonna coin it. And then we are back. We've also got Jake and Adam on Monday as well after Monsters Up North. Gaming Up North, and then we are back on
which is live on the Twitch, but then it's on Tuesday. It goes out onto the YouTube. So.
And then we are back on Friday. So, guys, everything that Nerdy Up North does is in the description below. You can follow me and Synoiz on everything in the description below. All of our friends, like the lovely Nita from FiQueens, we've got the Shuttle Pod Show, we've got Mike's LCARS Workshop from Clone Star Podcast, we've got Trek Culture, Unplanned, Trek, GL Sorry You, who is our lovely friend James, who will be coming on the show next month. To talk about Star Trek. We've got Adam's Music, who did the wonderful cover of Star Trek Voyager for our show. Everything you see in that list,
my favorite mountain.
Everything you see in that list below, give them a subscribe, give them a like, try them out. You're gonna love them. I know that. So, right. I think it's time for us to head back to the adequate, don't you, Synoiz?
Go on then. I haven't strangled a goose all day.
Lovely. Until next week, my lovelies, stay safe, take care of each other, live long and prosper. Live long and prosper. I need to put my teeth in. Live long and prosper, guys. Take care. Bye-bye.
Miles?